Good morning to everybody. My name is Basavaraju HM, HOD, Department of History, Maharani Arts College for Women, Mysore, University of Mysore. Today I will be speaking on the causes of the French Revolution of 1789. Many causes or many reasons were utterly responsible for the outbreak of the French Revolution of 1789. Usually we can explain the causes of the French Revolution with the title of political, social, economic, intellectual and the influence of American Revolution of 1789. Edmund Burke, the famous political statesman of England, was the first person who has analyzed the causes of the French Revolution of 1789. Now let us discuss about the political causes for the French Revolution. The political situation of France was a very serious one. The political condition of France was very severe, lamentable, deplorable on the day of the French Revolution. Because the French society, the French government was absolute and despotic. In addition to that, the French Bourbon monarchy was not only absolute and aristocratic, it was arbitrary, chaotic, inefficient and unscientific. Louis XIV, Louis XV and Louis XVI belonged to Bourbon monarchy of France. Louis XIV, XV and XVI believed in the theory of divine rights of kings. As a result, the French monarchy or the French Bourbon government was an institution of despotism. Political liberty was tomb. Monarchy was in anarchy. Louis XIV and Louis XV, Louis XVI, who belonged to the Bourbon dynasty of France, were completely influenced by the nobles of France. They were puppet of France. As a result, Louis XIV, Louis XV, Louis XVI were utterly responsible for the outbreak of the French Revolution of 1789. Now let us discuss about Louis XIV. Louis XIV was a capable ruler. Louis XIV was an aristocratic ruler. He was an ambitious ruler. He was a courageous ruler. He was a handsome and ambitious person. Louis XIV provided a model of a grand monarchy. As a result, France became a source of inspiration to all European courts. Louis XIV was popularly known as the Great King and King of Sun. He was popularly known as Surya Prabhu and Mahaprabhu. Louis XIV successfully ruled in France in between 1643 to 1750. During his period, France made good progress in every field. Especially, France made good progress in the field of culture, in the field of political, in the field of economy. He had two prominent prime ministers, namely one is Richelieu, another one is Mazarin. Under the help of Mazarin and Richelieu, France made good progress or achievements in the field of political and culture under the government of Louis XIV. Colbert was an economic minister during the period of Louis XIV. Colbert was a able economic minister. He introduced many economic reforms. He reduced the burden of taxation of the French workers and peasantry. He introduced industries. So Colbert helped to establish the French East India Company in India. Under the influence of Colbert, France made good progress in the field of economy. As a result, the period between 1643 to 1715 is known as the age of Louis XIV, the era of Louis XIV, and the time of Louis XIV in European history. The age of Louis XIV was golden age of art and literature. Even Voltaire, the famous political philosopher of France, described the age of Louis XIV as the most enlightened age, because Voltaire lived in the court of Louis XIV. Louis XIV was a capable ruler. He felt that he was the state. He used to say, "My words are law." Louis XIV used his power for his selfish ends, not of the welfare of the people. In addition to that, he abolished representative assembly. He believed in the theory of divine rights of a king. He was a commendable ruler, courageous ruler, capable ruler. As a result, the function and work of Louis XIV was a command, and that of the people to obey. Louis XIV hated Protestant because Louis XIV belonged to Roman Catholics. He gave many troubles to the Protestant in French society. As a result, more than 3 lakhs of Protestant fled to England, Netherlands, and Prussia. According to Anne Besant, Louis XIV was the founder of the French Revolution of 1789. He was the founder of the French Revolution of 1789. Louis XIV made a number of wars. He made costly wars. First one, he made the war with Holland in the year 1672. He made one more costly war with the Spanish Netherlands in between 1701 to 1714. As a result, France gained nothing from them. As a result of these 2 costly wars, the treasury of the country became empty. Louis XIV built the Palace of Versailles near Paris, the capital city of France. The Palace of Versailles was built at a cost of 11 crores of rupees. The court of the Louis XIV was the tomb of the nation. The people of France were suffering during the period of Louis XIV. When in the year 1715, Louis XIV died. In the words of Saint Simon, when his subject heard of the death of Louis XIV, the common people of France trembled with joy and thanked God for their deliverance. Next, let us discuss about Louis XV. After the death of Louis XIV, Louis XV came to throne of France in the year 1715. Louis XV was only 5 years old, 5 years papa, when he ascended the throne of France. As a result, Philip, Duke of Orleans, was appointed as the regent of France. But unfortunately, Philip, Duke of Orleans, collapsed the economy and administration of France. Louis XV had very much proud and he was a malpractice. Louis XV was a most corruptive ruler. He loved very much the company of women and liquor. Louis XV spent his precious time with women, girl, and dancer and harlots. Louis XV completely ignored the administration of a Bourbon monarchy. It did not sound on people's welfare. He felt that he was the representative of God. Louis XV felt that he was the representative of God. According to age, Hayes was a famous European historian. In the words of Hayes, the government of France under Louis XV was one of the petticoat more than of talents. Louis XIV was a very cruel ruler. He was a corrupt ruler and he was a maladministrative ruler. As a result, the treasury of the country became empty. When his minister tried to discuss with Louis XV, who belonged to the Bourbon dynasty of France, the serious problems of the state, Louis XV uttered, "After me the deluge. After me the deluge. ನನ್ನ ನಂತರ ದೇಶಕ್ಕೆ ಪ್ರಳಯ ಬಂದರೆ ಬರಲಿ ಅಂತ ಅವನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. France had to face 3 costly wars during the period of Louis XV. Louis XV made 3 costly wars. First one, War of the Polish Election. Second one, War of the Austrian Succession. Third one, the 7 Years' War. As a result of these costly wars, the treasure of the country became empty. The economic condition of France had been very, very complicated. The popularity of a French monarchy under Louis XV was decreased, not increased. As a result of 7 Years' War, France lost her colonies in India, Canada, and United States of America. In addition to that, as a result of these costly wars, France lost her military prestige in Europe. According to Carlyle, the famous scholars of England, the king and his court eat all and did nothing. The king and his court eat all did nothing. ರಾಜ ಮತ್ತು ಅವನ ಆಸ್ಥಾನಿಕರು ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ತಿಂದು ತೆಗೆದರು, ಏನನ್ನೂ ಮಾಡಲಿಲ್ಲ ಎಂಬುದಾಗಿ ತನ್ನ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯವನ್ನು ಕಾರ್ಲೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾನೆ. So as a result, during the period of Louis XV, France had to face several economic problems, financial problems. The costly wars of Louis XV paved the way for the economic bankruptcy. According to Aveling, Louis XIV led France to abyss, but Louis XV to severity. 14ನೇ ಫ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪಾತಾಳಕ್ಕೆ ತಳ್ಳಿದರೆ 15ನೇ ಲೂಯಿ ಅದನ್ನು ಕಾಣದಂತೆ ಮುಚ್ಚಿಬಿಟ್ಟ. Now let us discuss about Louis XVI. After the death of Louis XV, Louis XVI came to throne of France in the year 1774. Louis XVI was only 20 years old when he ascended the throne of France in the year 1774. In the words of Louis XIV, when he came to throne of France, at the time he uttered, "How unhappy are we? We are too young to rule, and it seems the whole world is falling on me. Oh God, what a burden is mine, and they have taught me nothing." According to some European historians, the Bourbon monarchs learned nothing and forgot nothing. ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ನೋಡಿ, "How unhappy are we? We are too young to rule, and it seems the whole world is falling on me. Oh God, what a burden is mine, and they have taught me nothing." ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಅಸಂತುಷ್ಟರು, ದೇಶವನ್ನಾಳಲು ತೀರ ಚಿಕ್ಕವರು. ಇಡೀ ಪ್ರಪಂಚದವೇ ನನ್ನ ಮೇಲೆ ಬೀಳ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ನಾನು ಹೊರಬೇಕಾದ ಭಾರ ಎಷ್ಟೊಂದು, ಅವರು ನನಗೆ ಏನನ್ನು ಹೇಳಿಕೊಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ. ಅವರು ಕಲ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ತಾನೇ ಅವನಿಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. So Louis XVI came to throne of France in the year 1774. The people of France felt that the fourth community days might be good ಅಂತ ಜನತೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಭಾವನೆ ಇತ್ತು ಇವನು ಬಂದ ಅಂತ. The people of France welcomed Louis XVI from the bottom of their core. But the dream of common people of France became lie. ಅದು ಸುಳ್ಳಾಯಿತು. Because Louis XVI naturally was a good man, but he was not a good king. There was no doubt regarding his virtues, honesty, and good sense. But he was a generous. Louis XVI was a generous. He was a kind-hearted person. But he had a fickle mind. He had no constant mind. He was very lazy. He was very lazy fellows. He was completely influenced by his wife Mary Antoinette. Mary Antoinette was a beautiful lady. Hence, he was completely influenced by his wife Mary Antoinette. And in the year 1774, the financial condition of France was serious one. Because France had a large debt. The debt grew year by year. Almost of national income of France during the period of Louis XIV XVI was devoted to payments of interest on the national debt. As a result, France had to face several economic problems, financial problems during the period of Louis XVI. In order to tackle the economic and financial condition of France, Louis XVI appointed three economic ministers. Namely, one is Turgot, second one is Necker, third one is Calonne. Turgot, Necker, and Calonne, Necker, and Turgot tried to introduce some certain reforms, but the reforms of economic ministers were completely opposed by Marie Antoinette, the nobles, and clergy and feudal lords. As a result, the efforts of economic ministers of Louis XVI ended in a failure. So, on May 5th, 1789, Louis XVI convened the States General at Versailles, the Palace of Versailles, after the lapse of 175 years. So, this State General consists of the nobles, the representatives of nobles, clergy, and the common people. The constitution crisis was created at State General. This constitutional crisis paved the way for the outbreak of the French Revolution of 1789. So, totally we can conclude that the French Revolution of 1789 took place during the period of Louis XVI. According to some European historians, Louis XIV and Louis XV showed revolutionary seeds for wind, but Louis XVI got revolutionary harvest. 14-15 ಲೂಯಿ ಬಿರುಗಾಳಿಗೆ ಕ್ರಾಂತಿ ಬೀಜವನ್ನು ಬಿತ್ತಿದರೆ 16 ಲೂಯಿ ಆ ಕ್ರಾಂತಿಯ ಬಿರುಗಾಳಿಯ ಬೆಳೆಯನ್ನು ಪಡೆದುಕೊಂಡ ಬೆಳೆಯನ್ನು ಪಡೆದ ಅಂತ ತನ್ನ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯವನ್ನು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವು ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದ ರೋಲ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೇರಿ ಆಂಟಾಯನೆಟ್ಟೆ. Mary Antoinette played a major role or vital role or remarkable role in France under Bourbon monarchy. The influence of women was always great in France under Bourbon monarchy. Mary Antoinette was no exception to rule. Who was Mary Antoinette? Mary Antoinette was the daughter of the great Empress Maria Theresa of Austria. Mary Antoinette had been married to Louis XVI, who belonged to the Bourbon dynasty of France, in hope that thus an alliance would be cemented between France and Austria, which had so long been enemies. Gradually, Mary Antoinette interfered in the administration of Louis XVI without any reason. Mary Antoinette honored her friends, relatives, and neighbors, but Mary Antoinette punished her enemies. Enemies means common people. Louis XVI was completely influenced by Mary Antoinette. According to Kettleby, the influence of Mary Antoinette tossed Louis XVI like a small ball either and thither. ಅತ್ತಲಿಂದ ಹಿತ್ತ ಇತ್ತಲಿಂದ ಹತ್ತ ಎಸೆಯಲ್ಪಟ್ಟ ಪುಟಾಣಿ ಚೆಂಡಾಗಿದ್ದ ಅಂತ ಕೆಟಲ್ಬಿ ತನ್ನ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯವನ್ನು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸ್ತಾನೆ. ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, ರಾಜನ ಕೊರಳಿಗೆ ಬಿದ್ದ ಬೀಸುವ ಕಲ್ಲಾಗಿದ್ದಳು. She was very beautiful lady. Mary Antoinette was very beautiful. She was very gracious. She was very gracious and beautiful and vivacious lady. She had the treasury of beauty. She maintained aristocratic life because she had grown up in Vienna, one of the gayest capital of Europe. As a result, the treasury of the country became empty. She was indirectly responsible for the defeat of France in 7 Years' War by England in the year 1763. She hated reforms. She hated common people of France. Mary Antoinette had very strong lady. She had power of strong power. and she was a lady of extraordinary brain, but she was lacking in wisdom. She maintained an aristocratic life. The luxurious life, aristocratic life, was the day-to-day life of the Mary Hunter-Ente. As a result, the treasure of the country became empty. Common people of France called Mary Hunter-Ente as a ಮೇಡಮ್ ಡಿಫಿಸಿಟ್, ಮೇಡಮ್ ಕೋತಾ, ಭೋಗ ವಿಲಾಸಗಳಿಗೆ ಸೋರಿ ಹೋಗುವ ಹಣದ ಚೀಲ ಎಂಬುದಾಗಿ ಅವಳನ್ನು ಕರೀತಾ ಇದ್ರು. It has been opined that Mary Hunter-Ente had the face of an angel but the heart of a devil. What a beautiful statement and opinion of European historians. ಅವಳದು ಅಪ್ಸರಿಯ ಮುಖ, ಆದರೆ ಹೃದಯ ರಾಕ್ಷಸಿಯದು. She had the face of an angel but the heart of a devil. According to H.L. Fisher, Mary Hunter-Ente drove the French dynasty as a ship in the ocean at the midst of dangerous rock and made it pieces. ಅಂದರೆ ಈ ಮೇರಿ ಹಂಟರ್-ಎಂಟೆ ಫ್ರಾನ್ಸಿನ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯವೆಂಬ ನೌಕೆಯನ್ನು ಸಮುದ್ರದ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ಇದ್ದ ಅಪಾಯಕಾರಿ ಬಂಡೆಯತ್ತ ದರ್ರ 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 ಅಂತ ಎಳೆದುಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗಿ ಡಿಕ್ಕಿ ಹೊಡೆಸಿ ನುಚ್ಚು ನೂರು ಮಾಡಿದ ಜಲದೇವತೆ ಎಂಬುದಾಗಿ H.L. ಫಿಶರ್ ತನ್ನ ಅಭಿಪ್ರಾಯವನ್ನು ವ್ಯಕ್ತಪಡಿಸ್ತಾನೆ. Finally, we can conclude that the French monarchy was absolute, despotic. It was arbitrary and chaotic, inefficient and unscientific. Unfortunately, the French government had no uniform code of laws. Almost 400 varieties of law were enforced in different parts of the country. Roman laws were practiced in some places. German laws were practiced in other places. All the laws were in Latin language. It was very difficult to understand Latin language for the French people during the period of Louis XIV, 15 and 16. So, according to Oliver Goldsmith, the laws grind the poor and the rich rules the law. ಈ ಶ್ರೀಮಂತರು ಅಥವಾ ಈ ರಾಜರು ಕಾನೂನುಗಳನ್ನು ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಕಾನೂನುಗಳು ಜನಸಾಮಾನ್ಯ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ರುಬ್ಬುದು ಅಂತ. ಸಚ್ ವರ್ ಪೊಲಿಟಿಕಲ್ ಗ್ಲೇರಿಂಗ್ ಇನ್ಇಕ್ವಾಲಿಟಿ in French society on the of the French Revolution. This kind of political inequality and severe condition, deplorable condition, paved the way for the outbreak of the French Revolution of 1789. Thank you.